Here, man, Rod. We do got to go ahead. Episode 6, X-Men 97, man, real quick. Your weekly update, your weekly review, man. How'd you feel about this episode, bro?
X-Men 97. So, I've seen between in person and on the internet, some people weren't fans of the episode. And I understand. Especially when you've been keeping up with the series, especially after the explosion episode 5 was, I feel like for a lot of people it could be underwhelming. But for me as a comic fan.
And let me get this point in. A lot of the people that work on the show were saying that after episode 5, everything's going to be crazy. So they kind of built it up as well.
Well, so to your point, Herbie, I seen that they said really the episodes 8 through 10, which is, I think it's called Tolerance, is also, this is the name for the, what's the name? I watched it, I seen it on IMDb where it goes, Tolerance is Extinction. It's a three-parter, 8 through 10. So, we'll get to that when we get here. But to your point, obviously, when you see the heights of episode 5 and they're hyping up the rest of the season, it's easy for people to be let down. Now, me as a comic book fan, the thing that I really loved about this episode was that, number one, it draws a lot from actual comic books. Life Death was actually a Storm story in the comics. The TV show didn't follow it like verbatim, like it's loosely following it, but the story follows the same exact beats. Storm loses her powers. In the original story, she goes to Africa. I don't think that she doesn't really go to Africa here. But in the original story, she goes to Africa. Her and Forge form a relationship. They end up in this like domain where like time doesn't work the way it's supposed to work, and they form a life together and shit like that. And Storm tries to lie to herself and say, oh, I'm cool without my powers and shit like that. She goes through the process of fighting her demons. It's not an owl in the comic, it's a snake. But ultimately, the story follows the same beats. What I liked about the episode was that they did parallels between Storm's story from the comic, and they introduced the adversary, who is a demonic entity. If you were someone who watched the original X-Men cartoon, you're probably aware of the Shadow King. The Shadow King was kind of like a demon who was obsessed with Storm and was able to attack her on the astral plane, which Xavier was able to help her with. The adversary is a similar villain. To the point that you made, Gerson, when we were talking pre-show, when you said everything happened in her mind, that was the adversary's doing. The adversary is a demon that preys on your fears and your insecurities and all that bullshit. All the shit that she was hallucinating about was at the behest of the adversary. But what I loved about the episode the most was the fact that they had parallels between Storm being in denial about her powers, right? Like there's a point to where Storm is telling Forge, you know what? It's better for humanity if I don't have my powers. And when you look at the other side of the mirror, they focus on Xavier. This is our first Charles Xavier sighting in the series. Now, for those who watched the original cartoon, the way the X-Men ends is that Xavier ends up getting extremely ill, and Lilandra, who is the Empress of the Shi'ar Empire, decides to take him in the last episode, and they disappear. So this episode kind of throws us right back into that. And you see Xavier has ingratiated himself in their culture. You see that Charles Xavier is now, he's married, he's happy. And the thing that I loved about the episode was you're seeing Charles Xavier having to balance between his family and his happiness. You see Storm having to have the balance between accepting her new reality and giving up what she knows in her heart she wants back, which is her powers, which she actually has, because Forge already gave her the serum. And I just, me as just a fan of the comics, that episode played out really big for me. They had a ton of Easter eggs. It also sets up the things to come, right? Because ultimately the point that we reached to in the end was Storm overcomes the adversary. She gets her powers back, and she realizes she was just the one holding herself back. And Xavier, through trying to teach the Shi'ar Empire the wrongs of how they live their lives, along with making them understand that, listen, man, like y'all have y'all way, but y'all don't have to hate everybody. And then him having the realization that, oh, fuck, Gambit's dead. And Xavier had the opportunity to change history. And he said, fuck it, I gotta go back for my people. And, I just found all that shit, the way it all tied together to me it tied together beautifully, dog.
Yeah, I enjoyed the Xavier points more than the Storm points, but I actually like the episode. It just lets me know that it was a no-win situation because you can't have an episode 5 and then, you feel me, and then have what can be considered as filler. But to me, it is a great episode because it shows you how they're trying to progress the story forward, and it's gonna say, hey, there's things that's gonna come to a head, bro. Like, nigga, everything doesn't have to be boom boom and crazy, bro.
Right. We don't
Like,
need to have a heart attack back to back to back. You know what I'm saying? There's gonna be ebbs and flows to this, right? Like before episode 5, maybe the best episode before episode 5 was maybe episode 2. Episodes 3 and 4 were good episodes, but they didn't blow anybody out the water. But that's the thing. Like the thing about a story is a story has its high point and its low points. But what's happening is this episode ultimately sets up Storm getting her powers back. It sets up Xavier returning back to Earth. So, and another thing, this is going to be a little bit of a spoiler to people. You know, I mean, they haven't revealed anything, but they're doing a lot of shit from the comics. And in the Genosha attack in the comics, Magneto doesn't die. And when Magneto comes back a villain. So what I'm thinking is when they talk about the last episodes even being bigger than episode 5, I think we're gonna see for the first time a realistic-ish kind of civil war between humans and mutants, maybe involving the Sentinels in those last 3 episodes of the season. I think shit's gonna get real dark.
Right, you are so ass when it comes to spoilers. You don't got to tell these people.
No, I'm just saying I don't know how they're gonna go. Here's the thing, Herbie.
Rod, it's obvious this is where they're going because you didn't see a dead body from Magneto. God damn it, bro. Like, God damn it, bro. Like, all right, and with that, that is our episode 6 recap, man. We'll see y'all next week, man. Deuces, man.